Washington, D.C. is no stranger to betrayal, but even in a city built on backroom deals and shifting alliances, some moments stand out as truly historic. What happened on the House floor that day was more than just another political maneuver. It was a seismic event that sent shockwaves through the very heart of the Republican Party. Speaker Mike Johnson, known to his supporters as MAGA Mike, stunned his base and confounded his critics by throwing his weight behind the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The silence that followed was deafening, as if the entire movement was holding its breath. For weeks, the battle lines had been drawn. Democrats demanded the full release of the Epstein documents, eager to expose secrets and score political points, while Republicans braced for a fight. Trump dismissed the push as nothing more than a partisan witch hunt, and his closest allies echoed his defiance, vowing to resist what they saw as a political trap. No one expected Johnson to fold, especially not on an issue so charged with controversy and risk. He was supposed to be the firewall, the last line of defense against what many in his party saw as the swamp's latest scheme to undermine their movement. Instead, Johnson caved, speaking of bipartisanship and transparency, words that to many sounded like classic establishment code for surrendering to the opposition. He claimed overwhelming support forced his hand, but true leaders, the base argued, don't back down when the fight gets tough. They dig in and stand their ground. MAGA Mike did the opposite. He crossed the aisle and joined forces with the very people his supporters considered the enemy. In that moment, Republican unity shattered, and the cracks in the party's foundation became impossible to ignore. The man who owed his power to Trump now aligned himself with those who had spent years seeking Trump's downfall, leaving many to wonder where his true loyalties lay. The message was unmistakable. When the wolves came to the gates, the gatekeeper didn't just step aside, he opened the doors and let them in. The air in Washington turned cold, heavy with the sense that something irreversible had just taken place. A war was coming, and the first shot wasn't fired by the opposition. It was fired by one of their own, a leader they thought they could trust. The betrayal wasn't just political. For millions of MAGA supporters across the country, it felt deeply personal, like a friend turning his back in a moment of crisis. Johnson's move exposed deep cracks in the movement, fractures that had been papered over for years but now threatened to split the party in two. The faithful were left reeling, questioning not just Johnson but the entire leadership, wondering who, if anyone, they could trust to carry their banner forward. The establishment cheered, sensing weakness and opportunity, ready to exploit the division for their own gain. The MAGA base felt abandoned, their energy and loyalty seemingly cast aside in a single, stunning vote. The shockwaves rippled through every corner of the party, from the halls of Congress to grassroots rallies in small towns across America. The old guard saw an opening, a chance to reclaim control and steer the party back to the center. The new guard saw a call to arms, a rallying cry to fight harder for the movement's original vision and values. The battle for the soul of the movement had begun, and no one could predict how, or where, it would end. And it all started with MAGA Mike's stunning, unforgettable reversal, a move that changed everything. Donald Trump is a fighter, a man who's built his entire public persona on never backing down from a challenge, no matter how fierce the opposition. But even he can be cornered, forced to make choices he'd rather avoid when the walls start closing in. As pressure for the Epstein files mounted, Trump's instinct was to resist, to dig in his heels and fight back against what he saw as a coordinated attack. He saw the effort as a trap, an attempt to smear him by association, to drag his name through the mud regardless of the facts. But the pressure was relentless, coming from all sides. Democrats, the media, and activists, painting him as a man with something to hide, fueling endless speculation. Even Republicans began to waver, their confidence shaken as they feared bad headlines more than bad policy, worried about their own political futures. They urged Trump to sign the bill, calling it a win for transparency, hoping to distance themselves from the controversy and restore public trust. The swamp's whispers grew louder, echoing through the halls of power, and the party's resolve crumbled. Trump was left isolated, his usual allies turning silent. To veto the bill would be to confirm his enemies' accusations, to hand them the narrative they craved and deepen the suspicion. With no good options left, Trump reversed course and announced he'd sign the bill, a move that stunned both his critics and his supporters. It was a tactical retreat, not a victory. A calculated move to survive another day, but one that left scars. The swamp had won, at least for now, celebrating a rare triumph over a president known for defiance. Trump's supporters watched in disbelief, struggling to process the sudden reversal and what it meant for their movement. The movement's champion had been forced to yield, his aura of invincibility shaken, his base left searching for answers. The retreat was orderly, but the damage was done. The vultures were circling, sensing weakness, and the future was more uncertain than ever. Trump's official announcement was measured, but his fury exploded on Truth Social. He unleashed a torrent of posts, lashing out at MAGA Mike and accusing him of betrayal. Trump called Johnson weak, a pawn of the Democrats, and reminded him who put him in power. The anger spread to every Republican who supported the bill. Trump warned his followers not to be distracted by the Epstein drama, urging them to focus on real victories. The party's response was chaos. Some echoed Trump's outrage, others stayed silent, hoping to avoid the crossfire. The meltdown exposed a party at war with itself. Trump's base saw a battle between patriots and the swamp. The establishment saw only political fallout. The Epstein bill became a fault line, and Trump's fury threatened to tear the party apart. The war of words was just beginning. The movement's unity was cracking. The Epstein Files Transparency Act was more than a political tool. It was a demand for truth, a call echoing from the halls of Congress to the streets outside. It represented a rare moment when the public's hunger for answers could no longer be ignored or brushed aside. For years, the public was fed redacted documents and official stories that didn't add up. The truth was hidden behind blacked-out lines and vague statements, fueling frustration and suspicion. Epstein's death in federal custody fueled suspicion and outrage. The circumstances were murky, and the official explanations left more questions than answers, igniting a firestorm of speculation. People believed with reason that the powerful were protecting their own. The sense that justice was being manipulated from behind closed doors only deepened the public's mistrust. The demand for the files was a grassroots movement, not a partisan ploy. It united people from all walks of life, cutting across political lines and backgrounds. Americans wanted names, flight logs, and accountability. They wanted to know who was involved, who enabled abuse, and who looked the other way. This was about justice, not politics. It was about restoring faith in the system and proving that no one, not even the most powerful, was above the law. The overwhelming House vote was a rare moment when the people's voice broke through. It showed that, when united, the public could force action even from a reluctant government. Johnson and others saw it as a problem to manage, not a moral imperative. But for millions, it was a test of the nation's conscience and commitment to truth. The act's passage was a victory for transparency. It was a step toward opening the doors that had been locked for too long. It was a demand for light in the darkest of places, a refusal to let secrets fester in the shadows any longer. The political class underestimated the public's resolve. The people wanted answers, and they would not be satisfied with anything less than the full truth. And now, for the first time, they were closer than ever to getting them, proving that sometimes the demand for justice can break through even the highest walls of power. While politicians argued, survivors of Epstein's abuse gathered for a vigil on the Capitol steps. It was quiet, somber, and powerful. For them, this wasn't about politics, it was about justice and truth. Figures like Annie Farmer stood as symbols of resilience. They honored those who didn't live to see this day, like Virginia Giuffre. The bill's passage was validation of their struggle. It was a promise that the powerful would finally be named. Their presence cut through the noise, reminding everyone of the human cost. The vigil wasn't a celebration, but a demand for a moral reckoning. They called for full investigation and equal justice. The survivors' courage was a rebuke to political cynicism. The release of the files was just the beginning. Speaker Johnson's betrayal was big, but Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation was seismic. Once Trump's fiercest defender, Greene abruptly left Congress, citing a divisive primary, but the real reason was her defiance of Trump on the Epstein issue. Trump denounced her as a traitor, furious over her alliance with Thomas Massie to push for the files' release. Greene fired back, calling Trump a liar and a failure on Epstein. The MAGA movement was now in open civil war. Allies condemned Greene. Some worried Trump had overreached. The spectacle of Trump and Greene, once united, now at war, exposed deep cracks in the movement. The fight was no longer just against the left, it was for the soul of MAGA. The infighting was ugly, and the party was reeling. The movement's foundation was shaking. This is more than political drama, it's a reckoning. The Epstein files fight, Johnson's betrayal, and Greene's rebellion have exposed a crisis within MAGA. Trump's authority faces its greatest internal challenge. The movement is split loyalty to Trump versus loyalty to principle. For some, MAGA is about Trump. For others, it's about fighting corruption, no matter the cost. The infighting threatens the America First agenda. Can Trump recover? Maybe. But the illusion of unity is gone. The seeds of doubt are planted. This is a turning point. Is MAGA loyal to ideas, or just to its king? The answer will define its future.